today what we're going to go over is the greater context in which all of this is happening. I thought it was apropos, as they say, because of Halloween, and it's very spooky. And I shouldn't be laughing about it. I've been thinking about it a long time. What's going on in society, what's going on in people. And it's the nanotech genocide behind all of this. And there was a targeting program before this, before the nanotech really was proliferated, and people were getting hit with directed energy weapons before this, and implants were being used before this era. I'll say that a few times. But in 2025, every targeted person has got the paradigm going on in them. And what's the paradigm? Well, if you've been on the call before, you've heard me talk about it. I'll say it again. The paradigm is implants, directed energy weapons, and nanotech all interfacing together to make one complex weapon system to target you. Basically, to send voltages from the outside of your body into the inside of your body. And that's what's happening to targets. 9 out of 10, 99 out of 100, something like that. And if it's not happening to you currently, it will very soon. And it's not to freak anybody out or make them feel bad or anything. It's just the truth. If you're targeted with, quote, gang stalking, or like whatever you want to call it, the street theater, which is just the counterintelligence programs, then very soon you will have these other things become factors, the implants and the nanotech. Everybody in society has got the nanotech growing in them. And that's what this presentation is going to be about. It's going to be about what I'm talking about when I say nanotech genocide, who's doing it, why they're doing it, and how they're doing it. And this is just so people can really understand the context of what's going on, the greater picture of what's going on, and how targeted individuals fit into that. And once you can kind of wrap your head around this huge thing that I'm talking about, it takes a long time, but just to take it in, then you can understand why infinite amount of money and resources is spent on you. And it really is, it's infinite as far as money and material, and then it's finite as far as personnel go. They can only get so many personnel involved for whatever reason. Usually it depends on the area you're in, the amount of people that they can get to sign up to do this to you. Because at the end of the day, the people that are signing up doing this to you have to, at the very first, they have to consent. And those people on the ground that are targeting you, right, they don't know about this nanotech genocide. They might know a little bit about it because of COVID and all that type of thing, but they don't really know how much they're playing a part in it. Because at the same time it's growing in you, it's growing in them. So that's the secret that's kind of kept from everybody. All right, and that's why I was saying earlier before the recording started that when we are talking about the people that are involved in doing this, on some level, they are also victimizing themselves. All right, so if we hold on to empathy and give them a chance for redemption, it'll be all the better for us and society in general. And I know that's a hard thing to say as you're being tortured by these people, but it is what it is. The same weapon systems that are being turned on us right now are currently turned on to the public too. It's just that targeted individuals are experiencing the most active form of it. So the most that someone can do, or a group of people in this case, counterintelligence, contractor, human torturers, human traffickers, whatever you want to call it, torturers, human traffickers is what I'm going to say. Whatever you want to call their title, what they do. Those people have these same weapon systems that they're developing on targets aimed at them in real time. I know that sounds like a crazy thing, like how would they not know that? But how does society not know that, right? It's the same. When you can answer one, you can answer the other, because we are all part of society. And everyone that we know in Western society and in most of the rest of the world is being impacted with these weapon systems in a somewhat passive manner. And that's what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover the nanotech genocide, and the EMF and all that, but mostly the nanotech and how that relates to where we are in the world and why the targeting program looks the way it does in 2025. And I thought it was, again, apropos because we're in the Halloween season of death and destruction. And what we're talking about right now is the biggest thing going on. So with that being said, I'm going to move right into the presentation. And after the presentation, we'll do a Q&A like normal. And the presentation's not that long. There's a few videos, so when the videos come, I'm going to ask if everyone can hear it, and if not, then we'll just skip the videos and I'll explain, or we'll watch it and then I'll explain it as it's going. So I can never figure out why sometimes the videos play sound and other times they don't. Okay, so can everyone, I guess you should be able to see my screen. Okay, hold on a second. Let me unmute Craig. Okay, no, hold on.
Hi.
Can people see my, hello, can people see what I'm sharing?
Yes.
I can.
Okay. Yes. All right, thank you, Liliana. Okay, I'm going to go back to muting everybody. Okay, and we're going to jump right into this. This is the presentation for today, which is, there we go. A new type of society, a global genocide, and of course, if I'm going to talk about these things, I'm definitely going to talk about the solutions. Some of the solutions are pretty, I don't know the right way to say this, out there, like as far as, because ultimately we've got a government problem at every level. But as far as right now, we'll just jump into it and you'll kind of see what I'm talking about as we go on. So I made this AI art, and what it's got is it's got a future-looking elephant and people in anguish holding signs that say bills. And the reason I made this art on the AI thing is, one, because it's fun, but two, more importantly, because this is the elephant in the room, this transhumanism that no one's talking about. And whether, I mean, not no one, very few people are talking about the literal thing, the literal application of it and what that really means. Very, very, very few people. And targeted individuals are at the center of it. Okay, what's the transhuman crap, the nanotech stuff that's being released in the chemtrails that we're eating in the corporate food and so forth is growing within everyone, but it's being cultivated through the implant network in targeted individuals. And what I mean by cultivated is every implant becomes a node. All right, every implant gets low pulses from the directed energy weapons, converts those low electromagnetic pulses into another form of low pulses that pulls the heavy metal and nanotech to those areas and grows it. So it literally cultivates it when you have the implants functioning. That's how that's working. That's part of the paradigm. We've gone over it a few times. Every time we talk, we go over it, and I will forever. So before we understand where we are now, we need to understand real history. And I'm going to keep this really, really short. This is very fascinating stuff. I could talk about this literally all day, all week. I'm big time into history because it's like, how did this world come to be? Well, you've got to throw out your idea of history, of what you've been told, because most of it is a lie. And what I mean by that is history is very cyclical. And when you understand these cycles, like the real thing that's going on and the real theme through all of it, you can understand very clearly how we got today, where there's literally a genocide, where a small group of people are planning on killing 13 out of 14 people. And right now we are in the midst of it, 2025, pretty much right in the middle of it. In the next few years, we're going to have even more and more deaths, but literally every day, hundreds of thousands of people are dying from nanotech complications, have no idea. They present themselves as a lot of different things, heart attacks, strokes, organ failures, you name it. It presents itself as that. And millions of people have already died. Maybe more people have died already than World War I and World War II. But it's somewhere comparable to that. I wouldn't know exactly. No one would. The people doing this wouldn't even know. Okay, so who are the people doing this? To understand them, you need to understand the real history of the world, of the last few thousand years. I know that it's a few thousand years. I know it sounds like a lot, but I'm going to go over it very quick. So in the times of Rome, there was a small group of people that ran Rome. And of the small group of people, and Rome was a huge empire, right? It was literally became the foundation for the Middle Ages of Europe and then on into the Renaissance and past that. That's the only reason I'm bringing this up. Those same senatorial families that ran Rome became the monarchical families of the Middle Ages, which became the owners of corporatocracy. The corporate, people throw around fascist incorrectly, but the government we have today, which is directly ran by corporations, which is supposed to be the definition of fascism. And I'm not getting into the Antifa thing. That's not the point. That's become a buzzword on purpose. It's become a buzzword so you don't understand what's going on. So you can't look past the left, right, blue, red politics to see who's really behind the veil of all this, who's the Wizard of Oz. So how this came to be is that these senatorial families, they were pulled from all over the empire. So when Rome went to conquer, say, Morocco or somewhere in the Middle East, Egypt, whatever it was, each one of these areas would have the ruling family from that area traditionally, or maybe not traditionally. Sometimes they were installed by Rome. They would have them all become senatorial families back in Rome. So they would hold pieces of Roman property, and they would hold pieces of whatever part of the empire, right? And whatever part of the empire they were really from is where the majority of their power laid. But when they came to Rome, or when their other family members were in Rome, they voted on things, they pushed things through. The emperor came from one of those families, always. There is no two ways about it. When Rome fell, it didn't fall, all right? It did not go away. It just transitioned. That's why you ask historians, when did Rome fall? They can't give you a date. It just transitioned into what we know today as Catholicism, all right? And that's not to say anything negative about your common Catholic, all right? Or even lots of elements of Catholicism. But the top has almost always been ran by the same people that trace their lineage back to these senatorial families. Now, that's the papacy and the nobility that becomes the papacy, right? And it's always, whenever you hear anyone becomes a pope, they have these bloodline ties back to these senatorial families. And there are so many people out there that have these bloodline ties, so it's not as rare as you think. There's other things that play a part in that. The Vatican, the reason it became important moving forward as the government of the European world, whatnot, is because they have the power to excommunicate kingdoms, right? So for a very, very long time, all the kings and the queens in all of Christian Europe were subject to the rule of the papacy. And again, what is the papacy? The papacy is the continuation of Roman senatorial family bloodlines, right? So that's called the black nobility. That lasted for 1,200 years. So Rome lasted for 800 years, give or take, whatever you want to call it, give or take. And this other system, which was Rome reimagined, lasted for another 8 to 1,200 years, depending how you want to, when did one start and when did one stop and the other one start and the other one stop. That ended, that whole system that was a continuation of the senatorial bloodlines and all their vestige of power. It transformed in 1844. And this is where it gets relevant. And this is the only reason I was bringing it up. The revolutions of America and France were basically forcing the monarchical families and the black nobility, the papal bloodlines behind them, to abdicate power in a way that they had never had to do before. So they had to abdicate power because they were getting beheaded. And they were getting beheaded because they could not control the mercantile class, which came out of the Renaissance, which is a longer conversation about market economy and capitalism and all that type of thing. Either way, they all decided to abdicate the same year, pretty much. There was only a few of them that didn't. And it's funny how this is a huge part of history that's just completely ignored. But it was 1844, and it was called the Springtime of Nations. All of these nations came out of all these monarchy kingdoms. I mean, there's so many of them. I don't want to list them off the top of my head because I don't want to get wrong. But it's like, like Bulgaria, Netherlands, Sweden, a whole bunch of them. Like I said, I don't want to list it because I don't have it memorized which ones became at that point. But it was a majority of European nation states formed in that year. Okay. There's a little bit of prehistory to that, how they came to those agreements. It happened in Venice in the 1820s. So they had 20-year window to figure it out and abdicate all at the same time. So all these families that were cousins of each other that had this bloodline going back to pagan Rome that also carried that religion in secret from that time, which now we call Luciferianism or Satanism, but would be better called the world's oldest religion, because that's really what it is, this paganism stuff. Go back before Rome. Rome picked all this up from Canaan, and anyways, the history goes on and on and on. But they all figured out that I'm not one of them, they could transition their power and their wealth and their prestige into private holdings through corporate personhood. So from 1844, right when the abdication of nations started, until 1890, all of these places got corporate personhood. Here in America, it happened in 1882, I believe, through agents of the Crown, particularly in the Supreme Court. But all these places got corporate personhood, all these new nations, a new form of government, right, where allegedly the people voted and whatnot. And then you go into politicians and what politicians really are, bought and sold by these agents of the Crown. They decided they would move all of their wealth into these private holdings, which we call corporations now. And then not only that, but they would make a plan through 3 world wars to get their power back, to return the greater society into feudal serfdom. All right, that brings us to present time. World War I, World War II were specifically designed to redistribute wealth from Germany and France, which is to say Western and Central Europe, and move it into these corporate private holdings that would be administered transnationally, and through trust and hedge funds, so that they could never be stopped again. So the first thing they did, and this is a generational plan, right? This didn't take place over 10 years. This took place over grandsons and great-grandsons' lives. Like, grandfather would sit the grandson down and say, this is what we were, and this is what we'll be, and this is what we're doing. The Skull and Bones, what's the other one? Scroll, Pen, and whatever, dude. There's so many of them. Yale, Princeton, Harvard, Dartmouth, Brown. What's that? Is that Brown? I can't remember all of them. But at the core of all of those higher institutions, higher thinking colleges, whatever, there was these secret societies to facilitate this generational plan given from the older generation to the younger generation to move this forward. And that's exactly what's happened. So in 2025, we're experiencing the culmination of these things. All right? It's taken a very, very long time for them to do all these things. The so-called elite, they started again in more modern times as the senatorial families. And then they transitioned to European kingdoms. The kingdoms became corporations. And the nation state was only just a placeholder. And a way to think about this is just one of many ways to think about it, is that it's like a mall. And every mall in the store, or every store in the mall, excuse me, is operating to grab your attention in a different way. That's like how these nation states are. But all the stores all fail if the mall fails. The mall is the crown and its efforts. It's always been that. It has always been that. They never went away. People think these people just went away and everything was fine. They never did. Not once, and throughout any part of history. They've always desired to rule over people at every level. And they, like, literally from China to, this isn't just Europe, this is all over the world. They all tie their legacy back to a learning or education that they say was given to them through fallen angels. That's a longer conversation we don't have to get into. So with all of that in mind, USA is special in this whole system. It's not just USA that's special. There's a few other places too. Canada, Brazil. It's not many places like this, what I'm about to say, is that each one of these, the Canada, United States, Brazil, it's all, and Brazil much less than Canada, United States, is split up into little fiefdoms. Each one of these, like, so in Washington, for example, where I'm at currently, there are 3, 4 different ruling families with these bloodlines that are ruling over it. Northrop Grumman is representative of one of them, Lockheed Martin another. That's just their weapons side. You know, that same ruling group would have a manufacturing, commercial, things that you would buy at like Target or Walmart or whatever. Walmart, Target, those types of places are representative of this power elite and their holdings also. So it's like United States is a group of these fiefdoms, and each one of these areas, so let's say like Seattle, for example, Seattle is like 2 or 3 different ruling families, like I was saying. They all those ruling families that run Seattle, they also, and they run it through the secret societies. That's how the secret societies connect to all this. But each one of those families has got holdings throughout the world, all right, where their majority holding is. Just like in the time of Rome, where the senatorial families were strongest in, you know, wherever they were from, let's say like Morocco, but they would have holdings in Rome proper, right, like the city in northern Italy, central Italy. That's exactly how the United States operates today. And that's what I mean about this is the real history of the world. We're seeing what was Rome is now USA. And I don't mean that in some like biblical term. I just mean that in the actual political actuations. Yeah, that's a little bit redundant. We are seeing the way things actually run, not the fake democracy lie. That's all a freaking lie. All right? John Kerry, George Bush. I mean, you guys already know this. Barack Obama, Donald Trump, pick your person. I'm sorry if you're a fan of any of them, but they're catching you in this red, blue, white, black thing that's a distraction from the truth. They're all cousins, all right? And if they aren't cousins, then they marry in and become cousins, which is the case with the Trump family. That's what the Jared Kushner marrying Ivanka, or Ivanka, whatever his daughter's name was, is really about. Jared Kushner is from one of the more powerful bloodlines. They're one of the major factions in Israel, for example. With this security apparatus in the United States, that's the reason it's so built up, more so than any other country in the world, because all of the so-called elites are interfacing here, whether they're ruling from India or China, or pick your fake, your thing, like, oh, China's an enemy of the United States. True and not true. It's true to the common folk, but it's not true to the so-called power elite that are running this world. They're all interfacing here. For the Chinese power families, whatnot, they're interfacing on the west coast of the United States, as was true of the Japanese 30, 40 years ago, right? When the Japanese got brought into this system after World War II. Again, we're seeing like what was World War II as far as that goes with the Japanese and the Americans, just to like give you another example to understand this concept, is that The Japanese said, the ruling elite there, the emperor and his ilk, said, we will incorporate ourselves in your system because your system is so much farther advanced than what we are doing, and we want to be part of the winning team on this world level. Plus, they were probably threatened also, like with death and all that type of thing, and some of them are killed. It's always the case when these families get brought in, is some of them resist because they want their own power. But anyways, they were brought in, and then what did we see directly after that? World War II. All of these Japanese corporations, what else? Sony, Subaru, Mitsubishi, there's so many, I can't even think of all of them right now, become world-leading corporations because they transferred all of their wealth, the Japanese elite, from World War II that they had pillaged Southeast Asia for, into these corporations, right? Into this power structure that they were going to help be a part of the world elite, the world monarchy. And they would literally at the same time marry in. And that's why the so-called elites are so obsessed with bloodlines, by the way. Scions is what they call it. The art of taking these royal families from other areas and blending them into the world monarchy. And it is a world monarchy. That's actually how the world runs. Agents of the crown. Almost everyone in the last 200 years. It's been literally almost everyone. From Napoleon to Winston Churchill to, you even go back farther than that. Martin Luther. You're looking almost always at different factions of higher level middle management fighting each other for different ideas, but it's all happening on the board of the world monarchy. So like the difference between Napoleon and who is his counterpart, Horatio, I can't remember, 1815, who is the Admiral Nelson? I can't remember, doesn't matter. Is their difference in opinion. At that period of history, the British elite believed that the crown should rule openly in that mercantile way that the English are so famous for. And the Freemasonry-connected Napoleon elite believed that it should be transitioned into more of a meritocracy. But they both were agents of the crown, as was Karl Marx, the creator of communism. All right, so all this stuff throughout history that we think is separate, is a new thing, is not. It's just a different flavor of the same thing for the same goal. And that's to keep regular people enslaved in a feudal system that actually functions. At every point of history, people are learning, right? Society is learning, and we're demanding more. And I don't want to get too far off onto any of this stuff particularly, but like I said earlier, the plan that we're under right now started in 1880, 1860, before World War I. World War I was the big kicking off of it. And the nanotech particularly, which is the last stage of this the big genocide that we're under, started in 96. And again, the goal for all of that is to reestablish a feudalism that works. You could call that technocracy. You could call that neo-feudalism. You could call it anything you want. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's a small group of elite, the same small group of elite, or the bloodlines of the same small group of elite, thinking and doing more or less the same thing. And they're just using different technologies to accomplish that. What was so important about Epstein is that Epstein showed the inner workings of this group of people. That's why Prince Andrew and the visible crown in Britain was getting together with the world leaders of industry, these celebrities, so forth. We all know this story. It showed the outer circle of the world monarchy. That's what it did. That's what, by the way, that's what Ghislaine Maxwell really is. Epstein's family connects to it through secret societies. So they're much lower until Epstein's operation. There are so many Epsteins, by the way. Every major city in the United States has an Epstein operation, at least one going on, probably multiple. When we looked at the Epstein stuff, what we saw was that they were all interfacing at think tanks, political summits, informal interactions like galas and openings, that they were, a lot of them were connected through secret societies. We saw the Epstein symbology all over his island, or we saw symbology all over Epstein's island, pointing to Baal worship, Moloch worship, right? And we can, by the way, Baal and Moloch and all that type of thing, right? Those are all, we can call those Zeus, and I can't remember which one Moloch is representative of. But anyways, they tie directly into the pantheon of pagan gods, right? The Baal and Moloch and all that are pre-pantheon names for the same gods. By the way, Zeus is Lucifer. That's the literal, like the fallen angel entity that people think of as Lucifer is Zeus. Like the actual Bible mentions Lucifer one time. The people that really mention Lucifer and make that part of our conversation are the people that worship the power associated with Jupiter or Zeus or Baal, which is all the same entity. And I'm not really speaking on that. There's a lot to say about that, but I'm not part of it, so I don't know a lot of it. All right, so this is a video. Dang it. Let me unmute everyone just for a second. In the previous short form video, hold on 1 second. Sorry about this. Let's go here. Well, that's not right. Excuse me. I gotta find. Can anyone talk right now?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, Liliana, can you hear that? Could you hear that video?
Yes, I did. Can
Okay.
I mention something very quickly?
Yes, very quickly.
There was a video sent yesterday about the new world order trying to destroy Christianity through, Todd Callender, attorney, and others were interviewed by Sean Turnbull of the SGT report, and a contributor said there that in England there's an organization called the Temple Mount, where Netanyahu and other leaders of the world and the whole British Crown are members, and they're all practitioners of Satanism. He said.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we're talking about. And as far as the secret society part of this goes, they interface at the secret society level very much so. But that's not all how they interface. It's much bigger in the day-to-day of our lives than them getting around and having orgies and raping children and all that stuff, which they do, and so forth and so forth. I don't really want to get too far into that because it's a big thing and it could be its own conversation alone. It's kind of off the point of what we're trying to talk about. Okay, so thank you for the confirmation. So I made this video a few years ago. This whole nanotech genocide has been making me cry for years. But here it is. You're going to hear it in a second.
A little louder, please. A little louder.
We can't hear it.
Okay, all right. I had a feeling it was going to go like that. Well, so, God, it's so frustrating how it does that. Basically, what's covered in the video is that this nanotech is very much provably prevalent in everyone. It's culturable. I mean, you can everyone mute their mics, please? There's a feedback right now. Thank you. The nanotech is in everyone. It's very, very provable. It's not just me guessing about it. A man named Clifford Carnicombe of Carnicombe Institute figured much of this out a long time ago. They can literally culture that very, very small parasite that becomes the wireless body area networks in our body, so that grows that artificial nervous system that clumps heavy metals into it. And then not only that, but you can trace the infection of our food and air back to these corporations, which are all owned by the same people. The same small, very small group of people. Again, so I'm not just guessing about this. It sounds like a lot of guesswork. It's not. It's just one of those things that you've heard before, but haven't really thought about, or maybe you have, that all the corporations, not all of them, but most of the corporations came from that era of history and from those families that already had all their wealth. And it makes so much sense if you just think about who had all the wealth when when the corporate personhood laws started. And what do we see today but shell companies of shell companies of shell companies, like General Electric, for example, or Nabisco, or just name your small corporations are all shell companies held by these larger corporations. And again, the larger corporations are held through trust funds and other things like that, hedge funds, to the so-called world monarchy, which is to say 100 years, 200 years ago, you would read in the paper, you could literally read this in the paper, people talked about it, they called them the black nobility. And the reason they said black, right, it had nothing to do with race or skin color or anything like that. What it had to do is black hidden, the hidden nobility. So you can literally go back to a 1930s newspaper, and when these like members of the black nobility are marrying each other, and they'll report it. And not only will they report it, but they'll say black nobility members marry each other. They'll use the terminology. So this was all, it wasn't common knowledge, but it was well understood in certain circles that this is how the world was really ran, was through the crown and agents of the crown. And whether you were a so-called communist or a so-called socialist or fascist or whatever bullcrap, you were all functions of different elements of the crown. And this, I didn't actually make this slide, but I will say this very quickly. When the Soviet Union wall fell, before that happened, there was public disclosed interfacing between the so-called elite of the Soviets and the Americans in California, in Big Sur. The family that hosted those meetings that ended up agreeing that the wall should fall and that the Soviet Union should break up because it was defunct, and those elites should be brought into the Western system, which had been proved to be better, was hosted by the same people that ended up starting Burning Man, that big festival in the desert or whatnot. That's the same elite family. And that they're one of the ruling families on the West Coast of the United States. All right. So that was public disclosure at the time it was happening. But again, if you hear all these little bits and you don't know how to connect it, you don't really understand what's going on, right? Like who those Soviet elite were. The Soviet elite were the agents of the crown from the Middle Ages. See, I'm getting way off, in Eastern Europe, which was to say a very, very small group of Ashkenazi Jew. It's got nothing to do with Jewish people. Everybody wants to say it's a Jewish thing. Jewish people run the world. That's not the case. The agents of the crown, or they've always, the highest elite of Jewish people have been used as agents of the crown, just like anywhere else in Europe, right? And whenever the crown is about to get caught, which is right now, they roll out the Jew thing. They say, oh, we're all Jewish. This is anti-Semitic. That's what they always do. They've done that since, well, not always, but they've done this literally since the late 1700s. It's an old scam. It goes back to the Byzantine Romans who figured it out first, that they could always just scapegoat Jews, and it has something to do, regular Jews, and it has something to do with Christianity. The whole term of, and this isn't a negative take on Christianity, but the whole term of Jew was invented in the 1500s by the, what's that Bible? The King James Version. All right, Judeans or whatnot. It's a whole longer conversation. I don't want to get too far off on it, but it bared repeating because right now we're currently seeing the Israel scapegoat be played out. It's the same thing they did during World War II with the Germans. They're doing it again with Israel. And that's not to defend what Israel's doing to Palestine. That's a god-awful country. It's doing terrible, terrible things to its own people and Palestinians. Not only that, but the Israelis are running the targeting program at almost the highest level. They're working directly as secret police. If you travel as a targeted person, you're going to be dealing with Israelis pretty much everywhere you go, right? If it's outside of the common NATO apparatus. But either way, that doesn't miss the point that they are currently being scapegoated for the crown who's behind all of it. All right, that's the video. So what we've learned here is that technocracy is neo-feudalism. Nanotech is the necessary hardware. And the reason we know that is because these people come out and say it. Klaus Schwab, all that type of thing, you know, that whole group of World Economic Forum Davos people, they literally said, this industrial revolution will not be about the technology you use, but about the technology that's in you. All right, 15-minute cities, the smart grid, digital ideas, and the social credit score are all the neo-feudalism. And nanotech is necessary for all of that to work. Control goes under the skin. It no longer becomes a method of controlling you through religion or controlling you through money, although those things will still play a factor. The major control is, and this is why you're targeted, is to develop these nanotechnologies to interface with electromagnetic fields. All right? And the end goal for them is epigenetic changes, which is to say they want to be able to change your DNA to produce disease, more or less, when they want. And then also to inflame your brain in specific patterns with blue light and other light-based technologies, which is what we call mind control. All right? That's targeted inflammation in synapses of your brain. That's where all of this is headed. That's why you're targeted. It's a beta test, but it's beyond a beta test because they already started this process. In 1996, the nanotech started to get sprayed on everyone. It's reached, like I said, it's reached a kill rate starting a few years ago. It's too bad we can't watch the video, the next video that's coming up, but it's great, a Greg Reese video. It's a great video. It shows that embalmers in Tennessee are, as of last year, we're finding these calamari-like clots, these big white fibrous clots in 1/5 to 1/6 of the dead people that they were splitting open, either for whatever, or for their funerals. All right, so when it comes to targeted individuals, it's not just that this nanotech technology set is being developed on you. It's also for murder, for torture, for killing and raping the enemies of the so-called elite or the agents of the crown. Now, the vast majority of people that are agents of the crown do not even know this. They just believe in hierarchy. All hierarchy leads back to the world monarchy. Almost all, I should say. Not all, but almost all. And it does that through nation states, business structures, just name your industry, right? They're on the top of all of it. They've spent the last 2,000 years manufacturing all these different elements, religion, all these different elements of society to be on the top of all these different things. And when they're not on the top of any one given realm of consciousness, they'll kill and murder, start wars to make sure that they are. And again, this has been the big trick that's been going on for a very, very long time. This is real history. In China right now, we hear very often that China's got its own thing going on. It's separate. That's not true at all. 100% untrue on every level. The China that we see right now is the Anglo-Saxon Protestant group of people, the George W. Bushes, H.W. Bushes of the world, and that ilk, when they went to China in the 70s and reopened it up. Basically, they waited for Mao to die because they couldn't trust Mao, Chairman Mao, to make these deals. And once he died, they opened it back up to corporations and all the Western influence, and then the ruling elite, like the what's his name? The guy, they call him Winnie the Pooh. Oh man, that's so annoying. I'm forgetting his name right now. I know his name. Everybody knows his name. But anyways, the the new emperor of China, 100% an agent of the crown at the highest level, as is Putin, as is Bolsonaro, as is Milei, the guy in Argentina. All these people that you heard that were fighting the globalism or internationalism and all that type of thing, it's all a lie. It's all a lie. They're presenting to you different flavors of this control grid that's being rolled out everywhere. And right now in China is the forefront of this system.
Hey, can I ask real quickly, is when you talk about the crown, are you also talking about City of London bankers who apparently
Yes.
Queen Elizabeth would have to curtsy to? I'm not sure about King Charles if he has to bow, but I've heard that, which means that they would be like almost in control of the crown.
Yeah, and then if you could mute yourself, that'd be great. I will answer. That's exactly right. The public part of the crown in England is just that. It's just the public part. The people that are running the finances back then, maybe still today, maybe not, are either equal to or surpassing that public side of the crown. But they're all cousins. They all have different roles in this system, and they all interface with each other, right? So the majority of the real power that's held in the world today is in central Italy up to southern Germany, with Switzerland probably being the most concentrated area for it. But it is also spread around the world completely, like the new emperor of China example. He does have real power, right? Of course he's got real power. China's a big place, as does, the Bushes or, whatever. Pick your ruling family from whatever area. They're all cousins of each other. And in fact, I would be remiss not to say this, but remember when Bush met the Queen of England and he did that like funny little bow to her? This was back in 2002, 3, something like that. And he's saying what a pleasure it was to meet her. It's because his part of the family interfaced with the Queen of England and the Windsor family particularly as their lessers. But they're all, like I said, they're all cousins and connected through marriages and bloodlines and secret societies. And that goes back to the religion part of this, why they do, if you listen to like the satanic ritual abuse survivors and whatnot, there's a lot of fakes out there, but there's also a lot of real. And they'll tell you over and over and over that a lot of these elite, so-called elite and their children go through these same rituals, but they don't get killed at the end of them like the regular children would. All right, so they're interfacing all those levels: business, politics, secret society, religion. Sometimes it's not even a secret. Sometimes they do it right out in the open. That's what like that Catholic gala that every year all those New York elite go to. That's because New York and Washington, D.C. are the actual power centers for this hemisphere. All right, and that's a longer conversation about Dutch and the ruling elite and how they established New York and all that type of thing. But right now, try to keep it more on point, China is the furthest along in this neo-feudalism, because technocracy is neo-feudalism. The reality of nanotech is that to keep these artificial nervous systems growing in people, they need to poison the food, the air, and the water. They need to release biochemical weapons and continuously these lab-made parasites and weaponized insects to keep you reinfected, because your body naturally sheds this stuff and will get rid of it if you're left alone to your own devices. So they have to continuously fill you full of toxins. And not only that, but bathe you in electromagnetic frequency. That's where the genocide comes. The people that are doing this, like I said, the world monarch or whatever, first of all, they're doing it because there wasn't enough good people to stop them over the last however many years. You can say 10, 20, 100, 200. All those things would be a relevant conversation we could have. But there wasn't enough people to stop them. So ultimately, the enemy is within. that's neither here nor there. Well, I guess it is here, and it needs to be repeated, because all this stuff can be surpassed if enough of us turn to righteousness together and reject all of it and really understand what I'm saying. This is truly how the world is ran. The longer you vote, the longer you pay your taxes, the longer, and I'm not saying break the law, right? Because I can't say that. But the longer you participate in this system, the longer it goes on. And literally the system and the people at the top of it have determined that you're undesirable and that you should die. And not only that, but 13 out of 14 people should die. So as being a targeted person, you're the first person to be killed, right? That's the idea. And your data is going to go in to further autonomize these weapon systems and make them better, but it's coming for everyone else. And even the people that are responsible for rolling these things out, which redemption is available to them as it is to all of us. And some of them will start to speak on this in a way, moving forward. Guaranteed. It's going to become too hard not to say or do anything about moving forward pretty soon in the next few years. It already is getting to that point right now. When enough people come forward and tell the truth and live in this truth, start really living it, it's all done. This is all done, right? So it's not so much, it is that these people are doing these things, but we can overcome them very easily if we stop playing the games, if we stop looking for other people to save us, if we stop, and I'm getting ahead of myself, if we just stop playing the game, because all this is a game. And to get back on point, the reality of nanotech is that the so-called bio-digital convergence is mass murder. There is no two ways about it. You cannot have this nanotech in people and have the majority of people healthy. And I'm not sure that you could ever have the nanotech in people in a stable way without continuously poisoning them. That may be another point. I think that's a larger idea of the data sets that they're looking for from targeted individuals. Who has the genetics that can sustain the nanotech without being killed by it, right? Because as of right now, these are super parasites that are being dumped on us 24/7, well, not 24/7, but a lot of the time, and then also that we're eating in the form of these very, very small parasites that grow into us, okay? And not only that, but the parasites, the lab-made parasites that grow the nanotech, so it's synthetic biology that grows nanotechnology. They're lab-made synthetic biology. That's what that means. When they grow these things in us, it's not just that they're growing the nanotech or forming the heavy metals into different nanomachinery. It's that there are diseases within diseases within diseases contained in these lab-made parasites. I call it the Russian doll disease, because if you guys know, a Russian doll is a doll within a doll within a doll within a doll. There's Lyme's disease. There's I can't remember. Babesia, Bartonella. I know those things for sure because I've been tested and proved them to be in myself, connected to this nanotech. But there's also many, many other very small bacterial parasites contained within this nanotech synthetic biology. Okay, so if this will continue, regardless, this is the end of what we've known. If we somehow stop the bigger genocide from happening, then society as we know it collapses because of loss of authority, more or less. We'll never go back to trusting these institutions. And for some of you, you're hearing this here for the first time, what I'm talking about. This will come off extremely woo-woo. Just put it aside, everything I've said, and look for the evidence in your life, all right? And just over anywhere between 6 months, 2 years, 3 years, you're going to realize a lot of what I've said, if not all of it, is true. There will be no lasting society with these breakthroughs in nanotech because it's poisoning, it's toxifying, it's giving people diseases. The big thing about targeted individuals is because they already started this and they're collecting this data, they're hoping to get the right data sets in time to stabilize this whole thing. Or maybe not, and the end goal is just to kill everybody. But as of right now, it's not stable. The nanotech that's being dumped on us, that's in the food, the air, and the water, it's just killing everybody. And not everybody, most people. It will kill all the people that don't know about it, or a lot of people that don't know about it. And the very good people, the people that are doing very good, not very good, we're not born good or bad. We do good or bad. But the people that are doing good eventually will come across this information that I'm presenting today, and they'll find ways of keeping themselves healthy. The very wicked will probably survive, right? Just because they know what's going on, right? They're doing these things, the people that are involved in this evil. But the vast majority of people that want to subscribe to the paradigm of how life was for their parents and their grandparents and so forth, that want to play America versus China, that want to do the red versus blue, that want to live in that paradigm of me versus you and us versus them, are going to perish from this world, because they're not going to get the information in time unless we can facilitate that. But also we have free will, and it goes far beyond just hearing the information. You've got to be at the right point to receive it. This is the video. I'll just skip past it. That was the video showing the white fibrous clots. That's Greg Reese, Tennessee embalmer. If you want to look it up for yourself, that's Greg Reese, and the video is Tennessee embalmers. And everything I was claiming right there about this genocide going on, the embalmers themselves, the people pulling apart the bodies, are confirming that. All right, they're saying 1 out of 5, 1 out of 6 people has these giant white fibrous clots. That's a totally new pathology of clots that no one's talking about, which goes back to that whole elephant in the room thing. We have a completely new form of disease upon us that's only been upon us in a very public way for the last 5 years, right? It goes farther, obviously it goes back to 96 or something like that, but in a very public way where the general Joe public has seen it for the last 4 or 5 years, and no one's talking about it. And why is that? Because, of course, these institutions are co-opted at one level or another through business, so forth, so forth. I already talked about it. The targeted people are the canaries. They're the canaries for the poison in the food and the air and water. Through getting these data sets from any given targeted individual, they can tell roughly what's going on in the environment with the chemtrails, the poisoning of the corporate food, or just the regular food at the grocery store. There's a lot of, it doesn't have to be corporate food, because they're getting all this stuff on different layers. For example, the fruit and the vegetable is being sprayed with a chemical solvent, usually outside of the factory, and that chemical solvent is to preserve it. That's what the people that are spraying the solvent believe. The people that design the solvent very much know what's going on, well, at the highest levels, right? And it's to help build the synthetic biology, nanotechnology environment, or to provide the materials for the nanotechnology to grow. And not only that, but the ambient directed energy weapons are being measured through targeted people. So if there's a blanket of energy weapons like there is everywhere in the United States, and it's tuned too high, and the targeted people in that area are experiencing lots of symptoms, and then their friends and family and their casual acquaintances, all this type of thing, all of that will show up in the symptomology. And what do I mean by too much? I mean enough for them to get caught doing any given thing. And they've been caught many times. We heard when the so-called 5G or 6G towers were being installed in certain areas, that, like, I remember hearing one about firefighters. God, I wish I remember where it was. I just thought of this right now, or I would have put it in the presentation. But I think it was like Ohio or something like that, where they had one of these towers come up near them, and then everyone started getting sick and injured at the firefighters department. So eventually they tore it down because they had the right to. It was on their property, I guess. And when they tore it down, everybody's health returned. Now, not only have we seen that, but we've seen mass die-offs of the animal population around these things too. A few years ago, we saw birds just falling out of the air, hundreds of thousands of them all over the world. You see livestock, same things happen to them around these areas. It goes on and on and on with the passive weapon systems have been provenly killed people. And it's not just that they're being blanketed with these frequencies is that these frequencies are hitting or interacting with the nanotech in their body, causing these complications. So the targeted people are the canaries of this whole system, right? Canaries in the coal mine, if you're not familiar with that phrase. It means they used to hold, when they would mine, they would hold birds, these little canaries, in these cages, and they would, because birds breathe faster than humans, they would put them up, and if they had stale air near them, the birds would die before they would. All right, so that's what I mean by that. Targeted people's friends and family are part of the data ledger sets. Their casual acquaintances, targeted people's casual acquaintances, are part of the data ledger sets. The random people that they come across are part of the data ledger sets. And even, this is one of the key points, this is to show you how far and deceptive this whole thing has gone. Even the contractors facilitating your torture are part of the data sets. All right? All of the data is being collected and used to facilitate this genocide. And a good way to think of the way this general genocide is going on is through an implosionary effect. They're trying to implode society in a nice, controlled way. So by 2029, 2030, 2035, whatever it is, if you survive it, you will own nothing and you will be happy. All right? That's where you've heard that phrase. We've all heard that phrase now. This is the how. Right? They'll never tell you the how. This is the how. This is how you're going to be happy just to be alive. So the key aspect with nanotechnologies is detoxing it, right? Obviously. Getting it out of your body. It's going to accrue in your body because it's in your environment. Getting it out of your body is key. To do that, it really, really helps to understand acidic foods and alkaline foods and what that really means. And what that really means is alkaline is dielectric, acidic is magnetic. All right? Hot is magnetic, dielectric is cold. Now, I know that's a lot to take in if you've never heard that before, but what I'm using is the etheric physics model. And basically, all of these weapon systems, the nanotech, the directed energy weapons, they all function the best in a magnetic internal and external environment. So you want to mate that magnetic charge with dielectricism. In the water scale, that dielectricism is called alkaline. All right, and I can give you a little example. When you're getting heated up with these directed energy weapons, if you take an ice pack and you put it to that part of your body, a lot of the effect goes away. Because on an electromagnetic level, you're mating the charge that's being sent to you. The easiest way to facilitate this dielectricism in your body is the alkaline diet. That's on drrobertyoung.com, fasting and exercise, and also keeping your colon and your GI clean. So making sure that you're never backed up, right? And a lot of the corporate food is making sure that you are backed up. So the more you eat of it, the slower your digestion, and the more likely you're going to be constipated. All right, so making sure that you're limiting the bad food in your life is key. And then, in general, removing bad habits as much as you can. You know, for me, that would be drinking soda, right? Occasionally I'll drink soda. That's actually a pretty bad habit because of all the crap that's in it. Alcohol, tobacco, smoking in general, being very sedentary, you know, sitting around too much, like just sitting there watching TV too much, that type of thing, not being active enough. All of those things will create a more acidic or magnetic internal environment that will speed up the growth of nanotech. And when nanotech is exposed to alkaline or dielectricism, generally speaking, it tends to fall apart. So the nanotech itself isn't bulletproof. The society they've built around the nanotech is moving into bulletproof, meaning that we're going to get a lot of these outcomes regardless. And that goes to say that what's been started can't easily be undone. It's much bigger than even the power elite that started it. All right, they pushed a rock down a hill and it's rolling full speed now. It is rolling full speed. We're into this for a few years now with the EMF and the nanotech being so heavily put into our environment. About 4 or 5, 6 years, give or take where you're at. Although it's been, like I said, sprayed since '96 and put in the corporate food since McDonald's sometime, probably a little bit before that. I mean, I think McDonald's is one of the, another bad habit, eating McDonald's, it was put into there sometime in the mid-'90s, a lot of this nanotech. Again, and the nanotech is updated consistently, so it's not necessarily like the stuff in '96 was as bad as the stuff that we're seeing now. Although that could be the case. I don't think that's the case. And this goes to the bigger point of the information I've been presenting and why I've presented this today is because a lot of people don't understand the context of you being targeted and what it really means. The implants, the nanotech, they grow in conjunction. The implants order the nanotech. The nanotech is accessed by the electromagnetic fields that are being aimed at you or that you're around. Okay? All of those things lead to the nanotech genocide, and targeted individuals are at the forefront of it. Okay, so I'm going to unmute everybody, and we're going to move into the Q&A. But hey, let's try to mute ourselves if we're not speaking, okay?
Okay.
Andrew,
Yeah, go ahead.
I have 2 questions.
Uh-huh.
One is, did you mention that the contractors that are facilitating this are also being victimized by this program?
Yes, they are. Yes, that's very true.
So they can die as a result of this and being involved?
Those crabs good.
Can you mute yourself,
No, they
Chris?
affect them too, but they affect them.
No, because I haven't finished. Because
Yeah, one thing at a time. Go ahead, Lillian.
so they can die as a result of being involved in targeting us, these people, the contractors?
Yes, the data sets that they're gathering from targeting us are going right back into the targeting people passively. So that very much affects them and their families.
Yeah, because Chief Jones said that he knew a lot of people involved in this program and some chiefs of police who all of a sudden died because of their involvement in targeting people.
Yeah, and they will pick people out to kill. You remember the Havana syndrome conversation?
Yeah.
They were saying that Cuban intelligence was targeting American diplomats in Cuba.
Yeah.
That really was happening. The Cuban intelligence was being ran by Israelis. All right, it's not a Jewish thing. It just is what it is. And I've seen it firsthand. I'm not just guessing about that. Cubans are ran by Israelis through the Chinese. That's a whole longer conversation. But they were really using these weapon systems on the American diplomats. And they were doing that because Cuba wasn't supposed to be part of the NATO fold. It's supposed to be part of the China, Brazil, Russia, India fold. So they were trying to stop that. So that really did happen. They went after each other.
Yeah, but there are, thousands of Havana syndrome victims that I was diagnosed with brain lesions. So they're all ordinary citizens that, they're being assaulted with these weapons, and they cause brain lesions in us. And this is in the United States that is going on.
Yeah. So, Liliana, I was talking about the original inception of the word Havana syndrome. Of course, I know that there's a lot of people being targeted. Those brain lesions, that's the nanotech interfacing with the EMF, electromagnetic fields. It's not just that the EMF is forming these brain lesions. It's that it's triggering nanotech in your body, and it's creating these abscesses. This happens on the outside of your body, and it happens on the inside of your body. That's why it's so important to get the nanotech detox as regularly as you can.
Okay. And my last question is, all of this is satanic. This is a satanic program. It's Satanism. And our Lord Jesus Christ has mentioned in the book of Revelations that historically in the world, they're going to be a great tribulation coming up. And he was speaking about the historical period that we are entering into right now. In the book of Revelations, he said that Satan was defeated in this process. And he's saying that there's going to come, he has several chosen prophets at the moment that he's communicating through to us with like 3 messages per week from all of these people, the same messages from the Lord, saying that there's a series of events that will start very soon. Apparently next year, they asked him, can it be postponed for later years if people pray? And he replied, no, but the prayers can lessen the intensity because I'm going to bring a great chastisement with several days of darkness where all of these technologies are not going to work because of the misuse of science and technology to attack humanity. And in the chastisement, he says he will strike down the Satanists and all of the satanic agents that were participating in attacking humanity.
Well, everything is pointing to that we are living in a great judgment right now. So, I don't know much to say more about that, but it's very clear to me that with the genocide going on as it is and killing so many people, that we're all experiencing judgment.
Yeah, well, he says that it's Satan's plan, but he is bringing events to undo Satan's plan on humanity.
Mm-hmm. And I hope that's the case. I really do. I'm not saying it's not. I don't know. I'm only talking about what I know.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's great points, Liliana.
Yeah. Can I ask a question, Andrew?
Yeah, go ahead.
Ask a couple of questions. Yeah, you talked about, right, the contractors and how they were part of the data set. Number one, how were they part of the data set? And number two, how, where, and who is collating all of this data?
Number one would be a little bit beyond the realm of what I could speak on accurately. The easiest way would be using that metaphor of the Havana syndrome, right? Where like these U.S. State Department employees that a lot of them probably know about these weapon systems were having the weapon systems turned on them, all right, to influence them for the specific outcomes of this international elite. All right, so more or less so who are the most targeted people through public disclosure? It's DOD officials. All right, these weapon systems are not just being aimed at us, although we're the not public, but the ones most on the edge of that. The weapon system are also being aimed internally at each other. So if you're talking about influence operations within those human trafficking networks, I guarantee they do this to each other. I've seen them do this to each other. Now, as far as the data ledger sets that come off of it, would be as simple as, were these things, could I inflame this contractor's brain at a certain point to get them to commit acts of violence against this person, right? And like you can think of a contractor as that inner circle of human traffickers, which is, mostly what we talk about as far as when we talk about contractors. But you could also think about it as that zealot neighborhood watch person, right? And a lot of these shootings and stuff like that are, am I still sharing, by the way?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. I should have stopped screen sharing a long time ago. But a lot of these shooting events between targeted individuals or survivors and the general informant public, the weapon systems were ran on both people at the same time. And only the target knew it was happening, but the target was getting hit much harder. So we've already seen a lot of that happen, where the data ledger has gone to the people that are supposed to be in the acts of targeting that person. And not only that, but there was a guy, Kenneth Grove, who recorded these laser weapon systems hitting his perp informant neighbors and stuff like that. They were higher level as they tried to piss him off. So he had on camera that these laser weapons were hitting them, the people that were trying to target him. And then what was your second question?
Well, the second question was how, where, and who is collating all of this information, because it's got to be massive. And I ask because I do believe that I see them couriering it. So I think it's going to like places like universities and places like that.
Yeah, and we were talking about that before the recording, but there was work done by another target that showed the ASN routing networks. All of our networks were being routed to these various universities, DARPA functionaries, NSA. Those were the big ones. There was a bunch of other ones too. It would be, all of those would be taking their pieces of the data ledgers. I imagine that the government institutions like the NSA or Unit 8200, which is Israel's NSA, are doing the vast majority of the data collection and acquisition, and then it's being fed back into big corporations like Palantir and Google and so forth. And that's literally, Palantir literally says it's doing that. It's collecting all this data, it's getting from all these different sources, and I know targeted individuals are one of them because they use the Palantir surveillance systems on targeted individuals all the time. That's like one of the main things these contractors are using. Like Pegasus, for example, was disclosed 5-6 years ago. I'm sure it's surpassed now. They're using something else, but we can only go off public disclosure and what I've personally seen. That's all I got for you.
I've seen sort of around me, they can't, it's far too much data. Spoken to AI about it, and it seems to be far too much data for them to actually have enough processing power to send it from where they are here. So it needs to be taken by hand, maybe on a super drive, and dead dropped somewhere. That's the impression that I get, that it's dead dropped. And it isn't sent over unless they've got a mini cell tower, which they may have, but I think it's dead dropped.
I don't. You might be right. I have no idea.
Can I mention something about Robert Duncan's book, Operation Soulcatcher, that he says there that hacking devices and computers is very similar to hacking the mind and the brain, and he's suggesting that hackers are being hired to hack devices and the brain of people at the same time. What do you think about that?
I know a lot of these people have their backgrounds in computer software, hacking, all that type of stuff through the military, but those are two different sets of technologies for sure. Hacking a brain is a biological system, and a lot of these people don't even know about the nanotech part of it. So it's like I don't subscribe to that idea that they're hacking our brain. I mean, that's that Yuval Harari thing. It's just a metaphor. We're talking about completely different sets. That's my opinion of technologies.
He called it cybernetics. Robert Duncan called it cybernetics.
If Robert Duncan would have talked about nanotechnologies in an accurate, specific way like I am right now, then I would, or Clifford Carnicom, the source material I'm getting it from, I'd be more apt to believe him. I think his real name was Tim Lord.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He went by a moniker for a reason. I'm going to leave it there.
Yeah.
I'll say something. This is Charlie. DeSantis had stopped. Have you heard that DeSantis had banned the flight? And why do you think he did that?
Ban the chemtrails?
Yeah, the chemtrails.
or geoengineering. Yeah.
He did it early this year. He banned it in Florida.
I would say politics, and then that's a guess. And then if we were to be there, we'd probably still see it, and that's a guess too.
You think so?
Yeah, 100%.
Have you heard that before? That he banned it. He passed the law.
Yeah, there's been a lot of Trump or Q adjacent conversation about the chemtrails being eradicated, and that's just not what I've seen anywhere.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Politics in general is a ruse. All of these people, so like Charlie, if you were to run for office and you were successful, what do you think would happen to you? You know, knowing what you know now about, being targeted.
They try to kill me? Oh, no.
Yeah, and that's what we see. When regular people get to that point, they get neutralized one way or the other. That's not always the case, but it's the case a lot of the time. So. Next
thought.
Okay, go ahead, Rachel.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say is that next week we're going to get more back into the practical solutions. It'll be back into implants, I think. I'm not sure yet, but I just wanted to cover this background because, number one, Halloween, and number two, it is such an important concept for people to understand that this is going on right now. It will really help facilitate your thinking and moving about the targeting that you're experiencing.
Now, what is you mentioned the ozone machine, and what is that supposed to do? I bought one. I just bought a fairly big one that'll cover a large area. What is that supposed to do?
The ozone molecule or the particulate?
Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. The ozone that's emitted from the machine, it helps bind to that aerosols that are being released into your environment. So it'll help keep your air cleaner. Did that make sense?
Yeah, sure. When I read about it, about the ozone machine is supposed to keep the air clean in your house. That's what the main purpose of it is.
Yeah. Every targeted person is being bombarded with aerosols being released from the sewer and the air above them and around them. So the more ozone you can produce in any area, the more fresh air or fresher air you're going to breathe.
Yeah. Also, I bought one of those alkaline machines too that turns your water into more alkaline. Hopefully it works. So I bought a test kit just to test it to see if it is doing it for the water.
Okay. Yeah, just keep moving through the paradigm as you experiment with all the other stuff. It can't. I mean, it might hurt if they tamper, but it'll only help you to learn more and more about what's going on around you, in your body and in the external environment.
Yeah, I haven't done the what do you call it, the food yet. It's going to be a tough one to go out eat without eating for 24 hours.
Build up to it. You'll be surprised. You can do it. You just build up to it.
Really? Like skip a couple meals? Just go to one meal a day? Really?
Yeah.
Okay. The alkaline water. So I'll try that. It's just never
Sounds good. So excuse me for this. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question about your presentation, Andrew. You said right that the technology binds to particular synapses.
Yeah.
I mean, can you expand on that at all? Do you know what specific synapses that they're looking at?
Well, I would imagine the emotional response cortexes, so the center of the brain moving into the left side of the brain, because that's primarily what they're targeting. They're using weapon systems to pull the heavy metal particulate up into this area of the brain on the top, so in between the middle brain, and then for it to bathe, I don't know the right words there, the particulate, this is heavy metal, it's nanotechnology particulate, for it to go in there, in this area, in the meninges, it's the bones in between the skull and the brain. And then, so like all this particulate, a lot of it, not all of it, is very, very small. So it can move down into the brain. It can also move up into the brain. All right. The electromagnetic frequencies keep it in place. So if I aim a beam weapon or even like a cone-shaped weapon at you, at the left side of your head, which is primarily the majority of targeting people experience, is that when the particulate gets that area, it more or less tries to glue itself into place. Now, it's through the stimulation of your senses, through your hearing and your eyes primarily, that these synapses are triggered with the EMF. All right? If you produce a certain frequency, it's between 400 and 425 hertz, what it will do is it will give you nausea. And what that nausea is the synapses, the nanotech in between the synapses from your ear into your brain becoming dislodged and disconnected. All right, so you can reproduce this effect with those frequencies, 400 to 425 on a sweep back and forth. And because that is the Hertzian frequency, of course it's Hertzian, the frequency that's resonating with the nanotech in that part of the brain. So because these things are being triggered, these synapses, they're being electrified, or the frequency is finding them, like in a cone shape, in a non-specific way, then you can facilitate the specific set of synapses with the right stimuli, i.e. sound or light. And it's usually both. And that's the idea behind the greater mind control efforts here with the epigenetic changes and the blue light, right? And it's not just blue light, it's just that's the biggest one, that they can polarize certain synapses of your brain to direct this inflammation to influence the way you think.
But then isn't the left side of the brain mainly concerned with logic and thought rather than emotion? It's the right side of the brain that's concerned with emotion. But I know that the other side sort of regulate each other. So maybe there's something in.
Well, the reason I was sorry for interrupting you. The reason I was saying the middle left side of the brain is because the middle part of the brain is controlling a lot of that base reaction, fear, anger, and they're always trying to facilitate that. So generally speaking, you are right, but I also know that specifically they are primarily focusing on the left side. So you put the two together and you can draw your own conclusions about, the specific part of the brains. But either way, they're using light and sound in a directed way, i.e. V2K and these laser or non-visible lasers to polarize those parts of our brains.
I think the bottom line is they really just don't know, do they? They don't know as much as we think they know.
I think you're exactly right. I think this whole thing has been, this whole transhuman neo-feudalism push has been a big gamble, and I don't think it's paying out.
Andrew, do you have an opinion about KCG?
Yes, I used it for years, and I had great success with it.
Thank you.
What do you suggest for counteracting the attack to the synapses?
You can use that frequency, 400 to 425 hertz for your ears, and you can wear orange light blockers, or excuse me, orange lenses, blue light blockers for your eyes. That being said, you still need to work on the greater implant idea, the implant nanotech EMF idea, which is to say step 1, 2, and 3 of the paradigm.
So, Andrew, are you still going to do something around sound? Because that's like a really, really interesting aspect of this, is the sound.
Yeah, no, I'm still working on that. It's a lot of things came up this week. But yeah, between 400, this is something you can do. Between 400 and 425 hertz, if you put that in a bass enough speaker, you could potentially detox this nano through the vibrations of that bass speaker. Something to experiment with. Very, very promising.
Yeah, I've actually tried hanging my feet. I've got a brilliant subwoofer, and I just plug all the tweeters out, and I've, sort of put my head around it, my feet around it, and it's and I've downloaded one of blue scales that you were talking about last week, and it's worked really, really well. So yeah, it is such an interesting area to look at the sound and the deep vibrations, especially like something from an organ. Those massive, and we are an organ, right? We've got organs. So those huge pipes from organs are just wonderful. They just absolutely make me, it just feels like it's all falling off when I get to hear something like that. So it'll be interesting to hear what you've got to say about the sound aspect of it.
Well, that's still a few. I imagine that's probably a few months out because I'm working on lots of things. But try it yourself. The 400 to 425 on your computer. You can go on a website and get a signal frequency generator, and you can set it between 400 and 425 to sweep. And if you run that through a very bass-orientated speaker, and you hold that to yourself, you should instantly feel effect. I've already done it on a lesser scale. It works, but it's not. I haven't figured it out enough to publish anything about it besides this conversation.
So you say 425?
No, 400 to 425.
Right. Okay. And on a sine. On a sine wave, rather than as a sawtooth or the triangular.
I used sine and sawtooth, I believe, and both had an effect. But I think sine is more natural.
Yeah. Yeah. Agree. Okay. I'll give that a go.
Yeah, definitely. Please get back to me about it.
Hi, Andrew. This is Michelle. I thank you for being here. I just have a question. I don't know if you've talked about it. I haven't been on the call the whole time, but I wanted to know your take on the witchcraft aspect of this, like, demonic weaponry.
There is, what I was talking about earlier is, like, there are many levels where these networks interface with each other, and one of the ways they interface with each other is through secret societies. The people involved in that, whether they're men or women, will have rituals specific to the groups that they're operating in. Usually it's very gross stuff. It's like stuff that we would be repulsed by. They will weaponize that whole idea against you for fun, like more or less. Yeah.
They're doing that to me right now. It's almost like a psyop.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, it is out there. I've personally seen it before. I was actually just talking about this yesterday. I've definitely seen it before in real life. People operating with these Luciferian ideals. But usually when it presents itself in a targeted person's environment, it's counterintelligence.
Yeah.
Usually, not always.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. I have seen it though. It is very real. It is very real.
Yeah, it's very disturbing.
Yeah, and that's usually why the counterintelligence that program is run on you, because it's so vile. You know, the whole idea of it.
Yeah.
But the intelligence agencies have always been tied to Luciferianism and cults. Always.
Bring Jesus strongly into your life.
Yeah, it definitely helps. It definitely helps. So hey guys, I know this one was a bit negative and it wasn't as solution based as previous ones, and we're going to get right back into that regular solutions based mindset. It's just like I said, it's been something that's been missing from these conversations, and I felt it was apt to understand the context of why we're what the system is doing when it's targeting us. Like on that very large 10,000 foot view.
Tweet, tweet, tweet. Tweet, 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 tweet. Ooh, 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 ooh.